Hello, this is Heart and Mind on Daily Cloud. I'm Dr. Dina McMillan, and today it's episode 16, The Influence Equation Part 2. Now, we did part 1 several weeks ago. World events began to interfere. We had to deal with that. These are some exceptional times we're in right now. So if you're joining me, I hope you will sign in to the live stream. You can sign in on Facebook at Daily Cloud. You can go to the Daily Cloud site or go on my X and sign into the live stream, Dr. Dina McMillan on the live stream. And you can ask me questions. You can make comments. I want to hear from you because this is really important information. And my whole goal is to make you more resistance to the type of manipulation we all face all the time from lots of different directions. Now, you probably know if you're here, now you may be watching this recorded because we do record every show. But if you are here during the live stream, you should know the times are written on your screen of when you can actually see this live and participate. And if you're bold enough, if you're courageous enough, I'm more than happy to have you in the studio. You can just contact me and we will see about having you in the studio with me. My friend Melinda Richards has done it a few times. I'm going to have other people on, but I'd love to have you on. Now, I should tell you right now that due to scheduling conflicts, I will not be doing a live show next week. So a week from today, it will actually be a recorded episode. Now, that's the bad news. The good news is what I'm going to be talking about. Now, today is another example of my protective mechanism coming in and me trying to give you information to keep yourself safe, especially when everybody's trying to pull at you during this holiday season. But everything I do isn't negative. It isn't about just protecting yourself. It's also about empowering yourself. It's about growing. So next week, what I'm going to talk about is using some of the social psychology that I know to make it possible for you to increase the likelihood that your New Year's resolutions will actually be successful, that you'll have a wonderful 2025. There are some things, now life doesn't hold guarantees, but there are some things that you can do that will increase the likelihood you'll be successful. And we're going to look at those next week. And I should tell you that the deal for the free silver has been extended until the 20th of December. Isn't that fantastic? So understand, if this is your first time, hopefully it's not your first time, but if this is your first time dealing with me, understand I'm a social psychologist. Now, what does that mean? It means that I have been trained to understand how the brain works, how we learn, how we're influenced and persuaded, how we're convinced and coerced, how we're manipulated and indoctrinated and even brainwashed. This science is fascinating, not just, and most people don't do it like I do. They don't use this information to inform the public, hey, watch out, you could get in trouble this way. Most people who are in my field use this knowledge to actually take advantage of people. They get you to buy things you don't need. They get you to vote for people you don't trust. But seeing the strings of manipulation the way I am explaining it to you can make all the difference in the world. And that's what I want for you. I want all of you to become completely manipulation proof. We're about to go into a new year. Let's make the next year even more impressive than this one. Attention parents, I've got an early Christmas gift for you. Now, we've all been there. 1 minute your kiddo is bouncing off the walls and an hour later they're super sick. You feel helpless and it can turn your plans upside down, especially on vacation and during the holidays. After thousands of customer requests, the wellness company has just launched the Kids Medical Emergency Kit. You no longer have to deal with emergency illnesses while you're in panic mode. Now you can have 6 critical medications at your fingertips to treat 20 plus illnesses for issues like strep throat, ear infections, lice, and respiratory illnesses, avoiding urgent care and hospitals for all of you. The Kids Emergency Kit has been hand selected by the wellness company's medical board, and it includes chewable amoxicillin, dissolvable ivermectin, and an optional EpiPen, and more. This includes a detailed guidebook guiding you step by step in emergencies. Ordering this kit is simple, and only parents can order for their children. You simply fill out an intake form and you'll get a verification call for your consent. Then it's delivered to your door. Don't wait until you're in the middle of a crisis and avoid those late night urgent care runs. Order your kid's emergency kit today and remove panic from your life. And if 1 or 2 of the scripts run out, there's a replenishment option to restock only what you need. Go to dailycloudhealth.com and grab your kids' emergency kit right now. Use the code Dr. Dina to save up to $40 at checkout. These kits are only available in the USA. Now, as we go through this, I know usually when I've done this, I've been live streaming for a little while now. When I say a little while, we're talking about 2 months maybe. I noticed that when I first start, a lot of people are still signing on. Do yourself a favor. If you can sign on, especially on X, sign on and make a comment. Ask a question. As we go through things, consider the examples for your own life, even if you don't contact me. Why am I asking you to do this? Because again, as a social psychologist, I have been trained to understand how we not only can influence other people, how we can influence ourselves. And the more involved you get, the more you participate, the more likely you are to remember the information during heightened circumstances. Now, when I do my training, I have 2 main programs that I train in. One is called Unmasking the Abuser. It's still the first and only targeted education program for domestic abuse and violence. I actually teach the specific tactics used by abusers to lure and entrap their partners. And I also have a program called Healing the Rift. And a lot of you, your ears may be perking up now saying, gosh, we need that right now. Yes, we do. My Healing the Rift program is about removing bias, but it comes from a non-political perspective. So you can vote for anybody and still fully participate in my programs. But I also design them to be interactive because I know from my education and my training that if you don't do things a certain way, people won't remember the information during heightened circumstances. So it doesn't help if I give you this information and when the situation arises where you need it, you don't remember it. That's no good. So as we go through, try to participate and see what you think. Now, we're about to go into the Christmas season, and I want to tell you about a wonderful gift for all of your friends who pride themselves on being on top of what's going on in the world. And you can also support Daily Cloud's historic work by ordering the Pfizer papers on Amazon. The Pfizer papers feature the latest analysis of the Pfizer clinical trial documents. These are the documents they wanted to keep secret for 75 years. Order it on Amazon. There are links everywhere. Just go on Amazon and put in the Pfizer papers and you will find it. It is a fantastic read for you and a wonderful gift for your clued in relatives and clued in family. Now, Last time you were with me, and we talked about this. Again, apologies, it was several weeks, but we had to go through those election outcomes. The reactions to the election were just so overwhelming, they had to be discussed. When we were talking about what we're talking about today, we were discussing sneaky maneuvers that influencers can use to increase the likelihood that when they use their manipulation tactics, their tactics will be successful. So these aren't the tactics themselves that we've been talking about since I've had this show. These are actually setups that get you primed and ready so that when that manipulation tactic is used, the probability doubles, triples, or more that you will comply, that you will give in, that you will buy what they're trying to sell you. Now, Robert Cialdini, who is my guy, I love him. Robert Cialdini wrote a book called Influence, and he also wrote a book called Persuasion, and it's about these setups. And what he found from doing extensive studies, not just journal articles by social scientists, but also on the ground studies with really successful salespeople. He found the most successful salespeople spend time crafting the preparation, crafting the setup before they ever ask you to reach in your pocket and give them some money or sign on to something. And sometimes these setups can be really quick and simple, but they work. And again, let me remind you, next week, I'm going to start giving you information so that you can use some of these effective methods on yourself when you're trying to encourage yourself to have more confidence, to take more chances, to speak up when someone is trying to take advantage of you. All of these things we're going to talk about next time. But right now, let's see what they're doing to you, okay? The simple moves that we're going to talk about today make you more receptive to someone's message or request. That needs to be really drummed into your head because that's scary. And I want to tell you something. Here's something else really frightening. It works on me too if I'm not paying attention. It's one of the reasons I keep telling you, all of the shields that I'm helping you put up only work if you hold them up over your head when the rain is falling, okay? If you just trust that because I know this, I can't be taken advantage of, you are easy prey, especially when somebody is clever enough to know not only the manipulation tactics, but the persuasion moves that can make it easier for them to convince you to do something that you really didn't want to do. All of this is so relevant for Christmas because a lot of people who don't necessarily put as much effort into the persuasion with the manipulation are shining it up. They took it out of the box. They're shining it up to use it because a lot of businesses rely on their Christmas sales. So they don't just want you to have a good Christmas. They want you to go into debt. No, we don't want that. And don't forget something else. When I was putting this together, it's not just about Christmas. New Year's resolutions. A lot of what we're going to see today, when you're thinking about it, also applies when you're making those New Year's resolutions where you're trying to say, okay, next year is going to be better than this one. I'm not going to make the same mistakes. And on the 1st of January, you wake up and you're like, okay, I'm doing things differently now. That's why I want to protect you from people trying to sign you up for something that you won't use or to get you to commit to something that's not in your best interest. And then next week, we're going to talk about with the things you really want to do. In fact, during this week, it would be smart to really think about what do I want to be better and different next year? And we can talk about how to increase the probability of that happening instead of only increasing the probability you'll sign on to something because somebody used one of the clever methods that we're going to talk about and you weren't prepared. What persuasion is framing a message to focus your attention. And the easiest example that I could think of is if you walk into a room and somebody has been making chocolate chip cookies. Now, you might not have even been hungry, and you certainly weren't thinking about chocolate chip cookies. I bet you are now, though, huh? Um, all of a sudden, the world is chocolate chip cookies. That's what persuasion methods do. They just narrow your focus and your desires and how you see the world just for a short while. And then if it's followed by an opportunity to purchase something or a manipulation tactic, it works on you. If I were able to go reach through the screen and offer you chocolate chip cookies now, I'll bet a lot of you would take them, especially if you want to take them now before the 1st of January, when everybody tends to go on a diet. And I want you to think about this for a second. And while you're thinking, feel free to add some comments, questions. Let me hear from you. We're going to go into depth now. I'm going to show you what this looks like so you can protect yourself. Open a gold IRA with Birch Gold Group and get free silver coins shipped directly to your home. That's right. It's the most wonderful time of the year. The time of the year when Birch Gold gives away a free silver American Eagle coin for every $5,000 purchased. And here's the best part. You don't have to pay a penny out of pocket. By December 20th, simply convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in precious metals, and Birch Gold will send your free silver coins directly to your home. Now, you might be thinking, why do I need to diversify into gold? My guy's headed to DC. Things are good. Well, here's the facts. An administration trying to put a dent in a $36 trillion national debt in just 4 years is like a field mice trying to stop a freight train. We can't even afford to pay the interest on the debt, let alone the principal. So, better be safe than sorry. Take action now to protect your savings. Text the word Daily Clout to 989898 for a free info kit on gold and to claim your eligibility for free silver on your purchase from Birch Gold. But you must do this by December 20th, 2024. Again, text Daily Clout to the number 989898 for peace of mind that lasts longer than 4 years. Now, if you remember last time, several weeks ago, when we talked about persuasion methods, we discussed how influential and powerful priming questions can be. Somebody just, as you're walking by, now all of us have gone through this, you're walking by and somebody says, do you consider yourself someone who cares about the environment? Or do you care if people are able to feed their families? Or anything like this, somebody asking you this question, getting you to stop and say yes, they have a significantly higher probability of getting you to sign on to whatever they're asking. In fact, in the book, Robert Cialdini mentions that by saying something like, asking you something like, do you consider yourself adventurous? They were able to get people to give them their contact details when, without that question, very few people complied. They were like, I don't want spam from this stranger. I don't know who they are. But just by asking, do you consider yourself adventurous? If you're not scared by social psychology by now, you really haven't been paying attention. Isn't that alarming? That they can triple the probability that you'll give a stranger your phone number, your contact details, your email. They can get you to open your wallet. And you're going to see a lot of that with what we talk about today. Just by asking you, do you consider yourself someone, or are you someone who, if you say yes to whatever they ask you, they've got you. So if somebody asks you a priming question like that, don't respond, because they're trying to manipulate you, even if it's a good cause. Look it up later, think about it later, don't give in right then. Now, price anchoring is another thing. A guy, he talks about a guy who accidentally found a very clever way to get people to stop quibbling about the charges that he gave for his consulting fees. As a consultant myself, I found this very interesting. He would show the features and benefits of his product, and then he'd make a joke. Oh, I can't charge you $1 million for this. But by putting that amount, $1 million, in their heads, he was able to charge them $75,000 without a quibble. It's amazing how our brain works. Sometimes it helps us. Sometimes it just makes us really, really vulnerable. Another thing to do, if they're able to find some way to get you to write a large number, they can say things like, oh, can you just write the largest number in your social security number or in your phone number? Just put down the highest numbers in your phone number. Anything to get you to write a large number, they're much more likely to get you to buy something expensive from them. Isn't that bizarre how our brain works? Once we start thinking of something super expensive, anything else begins to seem reasonable. Now, we also talked about the fact that wine stores found that if they wanted people to buy the French wines, if they put obvious French music, Edith Piaf or something, obvious French music in the background, people were more likely to buy the French wine. If they needed to get rid of the German wine, they put German music in the background. You could also do it with the music and put posters on the walls. Get people thinking about Paris. Paris is such a beautiful city. I lived there for 3 years when I was young and decided to go to university in Paris. So I'm probably really easily primed to start thinking about France. So I have to be careful. Now you're going to walk into venues and you're going to do something you don't normally do. You're going to pay attention to the background music. You're going to look and see what they have on the walls because you don't think it's influencing you, but it does. Just like when they have those little advertising banners on a site you click on, you think it doesn't influence you, but it does. When you come across that product in real life, or if they send you an email, you are significantly more likely to buy it if you encountered it on a site or an email or whatever you were doing. If you saw that little banner that you tried not to pay any attention to, the subconscious part of your mind pays attention to everything. Now, there's also possibility anchoring, and because of New Year's, I decided to add this one. Fitness centers that have all these people, show all these people working out with absolutely perfect bodies, okay? Or they have celebrities who are stunningly gorgeous, maybe somebody that you had a crush on previously. And they say, well, look, we can't guarantee by June you're going to look like Halle Berry or Margot Robbie or Brad Pitt. But by mentioning that, even if they just show the people, they don't even have to mention the names. That frames the situation so that you start to get a little bit and then a lot more enthusiastic about joining that gym. And if you were going to join a gym, you'd be much more likely to join one that used this type of possibility anchoring trick than one that just showed you and said, hey, you're fat, get off the couch. And remember, anything you pay attention to will seem more important. That is really scary because this is where having a government and a culture that is only run by a few people with an agenda gets to be terrifying because they will make sure that what they want to be prioritized in your mind gets lots of attention. Anything you pay attention to, attention is the number one thing. Your subconscious mind, your primal mind, will look at attention, what is paid attention to in your culture, in your environment, as the number one thing that it should pay attention to itself and adapt to. That's the scary part. Step 2 is the scary part. It doesn't just pay attention to it. It adapts to it. First, it might just accept it, even if it doesn't like it. Then it starts to normalize it. And then if they have a lot of acclaim around whatever it is, you'll start to admire it too. We are all easily moved around the board like chess pieces. We have to be very cautious. That's why I'm really grateful for Daily Cloud giving me this opportunity to come out here and talk to you all about these issues, because I don't know any other social psychologists that are letting you look behind the curtain. Now, here's another way they use attention. So this is slightly new information. This isn't just what we talked about last time. They control the narrative. They decide what's being discussed. And the picture you see there is something I took off of social media because some clever person noted that every news program in every state that was owned by one of the big conglomerates had their people script the exact same words. It would be something like, we think what Donald Trump is doing is a threat to our democracy. We know how much Trump was picked on, right? But you kept hearing the same words, the exact same words with the exact same cadence, regardless of where you were. You heard it over and over again. So it's not just what's being discussed. It's what's being discussed in a very scripted fashion. Because if your brain keeps hearing the same words over and over again, your brain interprets that as truth. It's like growing up. If you look even in the 90s and the early 2000s, if you watched a lot of mainstream media, whenever they had someone on who was an illegal immigrant, they always used the same terminology. They're just looking for a better life. Now, it doesn't matter what the situation was on the show, whether what was being said was consistent with the character who was saying it. They just kept saying it, saying it, saying it, saying it. And what they also did, control the narrative. What's being discussed, I should have put also, what's being ignored. The cost in infrastructure, in crime, in space and housing, in having people around who don't speak the language, in overcrowding the schools, in overcrowding our medical facilities. None of that was ever discussed. It was like it didn't matter. Anybody who even broached the subject was immediately called a bigot on whatever media source you were watching and dismissed. So that taught your brain, don't look over there. Don't look at that. So this is how they grab your attention, how they keep your attention. They control what's being discussed and they control what's being ignored. They use very targeted questions. Did you know that people can get a very different response from you if they ask you, what are you happy about in your life right now? Versus what in your life is making you feel frustrated and afraid? Framing again. So as soon as they ask the question, your brain immediately starts making a little list of everything that's relevant to what they asked. And it can change what they can get you to do. Especially often if they ask you something negative, it's designed around saying, and guess what? We have the solution. So the tactic of manipulation being used, the influence tactic, is around being your savior. But first, they want you to really feel any kind of frustration, unhappiness, dissatisfaction. They want it to really spike up so you'll be more likely to sign on to whatever they're asking you about, because they say they can save you. Now, there are three things that really tend to grab our attention. Primal drives, sex, danger, and novelty. Now, the third one, I have to admit, novelty. I realized a long time ago that putting new and improved on a product is almost guaranteed to get me to pick it up and buy it. And I know I'm being manipulated. It still works So I have to we're going to talk also about things you can do, like little physical gestures you can use, a little NLP to try to keep yourself from giving in to your impulses when somebody knows that just by saying, hey, this is new and improved. Ooh, you've not seen this one before. People like me grab onto it. Danger. Some of you are more primed by danger, saying, oh my God, look what's happening. Now, we've had a lot of that. In fact, the last several shows have been talking about how the Democrats have been using danger to not only get people to vote for Kamala Harris, but to terrify them about the Trump administration. So many of them believe that all their rights are going to be removed, that I heard today somebody saying something about putting people in front of firing squads. They talked about returning Black people to slavery. Thank you, Whoopi Goldberg. Fear grabs some people. I think if you're the type of person who's driven by fear, then a show like The View would be manna from heaven for you. Other people are driven by sexy stuff, somebody that they admire, that they have a crush on. Anytime they see that person, they do whatever they're told. It grabs their attention. And of course, once they grab it, they've got to keep it. Here are, when you watch this in the recording, if you're watching now, don't worry about it. Watch it in the recording and then screenshot this, because these are marketing's magic words that are used to try to get you to push purchase on something. Free, new, easy, proven, now, best, discover, save, love, guarantee, safety, and health. These will also grab your attention and make you more positively predisposed to complying with whatever is being asked of you by the person who's mentioning these words. And of course, how do they get your attention? They hold it by talking about you. That's your favorite topic. You see a lot of sites now, and I've even done one of these myself, where they actually allow you to say, hey, come on our website and take a customized test so that we know more about you and we can offer you something that fits with you. If they keep getting you to talk about yourself and think about yourself and say, I'm going to customize the solution so it fits with you, it's often pretty successful. How do they use your attention? Number 5, they keep you engaged. Now, here's one of my biggest bugaboos. Anybody else? When you sign on to a website, they say, hey, there's one product people don't think about. There's one vegetable, there's one mineral, there's one type of tea that can really make this health issue easier, that can really make this better. You go onto the website and you have to go to page after page after page. They just won't tell you what it is. Why do they do that? Because the longer they can keep you engaged, the higher the probability you're going to push buy. So they make you work to find the solution being promised as a method of increasing the likelihood they'll make a sale. Other tools are unity. Notice I tried to be fair here. How did you feel when you watched those rallies with tens of thousands of people inside and outside the stadiums, all wearing MAGA hats, all waiting to see Trump and the Unity Party and Elon and Bobby Kennedy Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard and all the people that he had going. And even when they hadn't been there yet, how did you feel when you saw those people with a hat that became almost a uniform? And then, of course, after the election, we've seen talk from Democrat women about getting blue bracelets to identify themselves, to getting blue tattoos, to shaving their heads, all of these identifiers because they wanted to feel like something bigger than themselves. That is a really strong primal drive in most of us. So I'm not criticizing it. These are natural instincts. I'm just saying that someone who wants to can take advantage of that. And also, when somebody's trying to sell you on something, whether it's a concept, an idea, or they want you to sign up for something, they want to sell you something. If they use the term we, if they talk about, you know how we do this, and they make it seem like they're part of your group, it also increases the probability that you will comply with what they're asking. They also, connections. Connections are big. If an organization, and they often use the example of Mercedes-Benz. Every time you see a Mercedes-Benz, it's surrounded by a huge, luxurious house and really expensively dressed people. So by positioning their product, their idea, or whatever next to something, your brain will quickly start to form a pattern and a connection between that product, that idea, and whatever it is, it's always next to. And of course, the thing is, they always make it next to something very desirable. And when they're doing this, the more emotionally evocative they can make it, the better. So if it's something like showing genuine, true love, finally finding your soulmate, or really helping people, you see people that were impoverished and you see their smiling faces as they have clean water, the more emotionally evocative they can make it, the more likely you are to sign on. Also, when they're trying to figure out, okay, what do we connect our product, our idea, our cause to? They're going to probably choose either something you deeply desire or something you deeply fear. Remember, not everybody is driven by desire into action. A lot of people are more easily driven to act through fear. So some clever marketers appeal to both. So they'll have some things showing this ideal life associated with what they're giving you or offering you. And other times they'll show you the absolute worst thing that could happen. And in fact, I would tell you this, for those of you clever clogs who actually listen to my Unmasking the Abuser podcast, or have read my books, or are acquainted with my work, there are several tactics abusers use that do exactly this. They use both. So like love bombing. Love bombing is when you meet someone and they flatter you and compliment you and talk about how wonderful you are, and they make you feel like the sun rises and sets out of your backside. But at the same time, shortly thereafter, they will imply or say outright or make you feel like if you decide not to be with them, you're going to live by yourself. You're going to be dead for days and nobody will know. Your only companions will be rescue animals, and they won't even like you that much. So having these connections is really powerful, and again, powerful for all of us. None of us is really immune. They'll also use careful language. Something's expensive, they want you to spend a lot on it, they'll call it an investment in yourself, an investment in your future, an investment in your child's future, instead of words like cost. So they'll use active words and make it seem like you're being clever, and importantly, that you'll get something back, rather than cost, which sounds like you give something away and you never see it again. Then we have other tricks. They'll misuse your heightened state. I don't know about you, but raise your hand, give me a comment if anybody's been in a heightened state for the last 6 months. I have never been so worried about an election outcome in my life, and I'm no spring chicken, causing me nightmares and all kinds of problems. And I have to be careful right now because I know that although it's calmed down a little since the election, when you're in a heightened state, you're quite vulnerable to being coerced, convinced, manipulated, fooled. So you have to watch out. Also, when you're in love, that's why often you'll see those people selling those overpriced flowers at a restaurant, and they'll go to couples that are where either he's trying to impress her or they're really into each other and the endorphins are going and the dopamine's high and maybe the oxytocin is in there and they're like, oh, it's only $5 for this rose, which of course costs them probably 5 cents. They open their wallet, they give them the money. When you're fearful, it does the same thing. This is what's going on also when people who are using fear to try to manipulate a large proportion of the population, terrifying them about what's coming, they're also giving them instructions on what to do. And the people are so afraid. These people are promising, or by word or implication, you'll be safe if you follow my instructions. You'll be safe if you're part of a group and not on your own. That's a really clever trick, and it's extremely effective. So yeah, heightened states are another way they get at you. Here's another one, social proof. They convince you everybody in your group does it. Everybody in your group likes it. We don't want to feel left out. We want to be part of the group, right? Our group membership matters to us. So that's why they get all of these women to take a vow to be celibate and give away their most fertile years in reaction to an election that won't make any difference at all to the political situation. This is how they do it. All of us are doing this. You see it all over social media, especially on TikTok. Another trick, elitist social proof. All of the smartest people do this. All the cool people do this. This is off an Instagram, where they will convince people, oh, everybody's going here. Everybody's doing this. And as soon as a critical mass of people start doing whatever it is, soon there's a run. Because, yeah, it works. We want to feel like we're in with the cool kids. You know, if we wanted to be manipulated, all we have to do, I would look at this. How many people bought dark MAGA hats after Elon Musk started wearing it? Because, he's the number one cool kid, you know? How many people bought that? We're all vulnerable to it. And I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad thing, but you just got to be aware that in the wrong hands, you can seriously be taken advantage of. Other trick, scarcity. Oh, the toilet paper run. You know how that started? It started because China was having trouble with toilet paper. And a lot of Chinese live in Australia or visit Australia. So a lot of the Chinese in Australia started buying out entire grocery stores and just loading up their cars with toilet paper and sending it over to China. Now, Australia didn't have a shortage of toilet paper, but that action convinced everybody they did. And of course, they put it on social media. So everybody in the rest of the Western world was also convinced there was a shortage on toilet paper. And of course, overstocking, overbuying caused a shortage of toilet paper. See how that works? Telling you, you only have 10 minutes to do this. You can only buy this now. You know how when you go on and buy something and they try to get you to buy something else and they have a little clock ticking that says this deal is only good for 15 minutes? Or we only have one left. You go on Amazon. My sisters call Amazon Crackazon. And it's pretty right. You go on Amazon and you look at a product and it says 3 left, 3 remaining. eBay, same thing, 1 left. You're like, oh, I have to get that. I'm not going to think about it too much, because what if I walk away and don't get it and I come back and they're all gone? So sometimes they will create artificial scarcity. They will claim scarcity these people who are trying to influence and persuade you in order to get you to sign on to something, to buy something, to do it quickly without giving yourself enough chance to think to what you're committing to. This is also used for all of you that have timeshares. I've gone to a few timeshare sales pitch weekends. I like seeing how people are sold things. And with the timeshare, they make it seem like, okay, we only have a few spots left. This is the best thing ever. They use social proof, all the smart, elitist social proof, all the smart people are doing this. And they say, okay, you can only sign on today. Car salespeople often try to do this. We can only give you this great deal that we put together if you sign on now. They don't want to give you time to think. And gosh, these things are selling out. If you come back next week, chances are what you want is gone. Another trick, reciprocity. Most of us have been conditioned that if somebody gives us something, we have to give them something back. That's why grocery stores will often have people set up blocking the aisles, another little pet peeve, blocking the aisles to give you a freebie of a product they're trying to move. And if you go and take the free product, the chances are much higher that you'll actually buy it. Because, and you think it's because, well, it's good, I got a chance to taste it. Yeah, maybe. But underlying that, this person at this store gave you something, and there's a part of you that feels obligated to give them something back. Now here, let's talk, we have a few minutes left. Anybody have a question, let me know. But let's talk about what you can do to protect yourself. I've gotten into the habit, and this is something we're going to talk about a lot next week. I've gotten to the habit of not doing things on the spur of the moment. Stop and consider and be on the lookout for these methods. I'm showing you some really clever tricks that are like state secrets. Be on the lookout for people using them on you. It can make a lot of difference. Right now, anything you do for the next year, I want it to be successful. I want to get a lot of comments from people saying, I would have never thought about doing it this way. And I did it, and it worked, and now my life is wonderful. I want you to think about other things that you can do. Think about ways of don't allow yourself, tell yourself always, if somebody asks me a question to draw me in to find out more, that's one of those clever methods Dr. Dina used. So I'm not even going to approach them. Now, if they look like they have a good cause, here's something you can do. When you get back home, go online and look them up. See if it's really credible, and be sure to do something my daughter has taught me years ago. Always look at the reviews. Look at the reviews, but don't look at the reviews on Instagram. Can I say this? Because I like Instagram and I use it every day. But I cannot necessarily assess whether a product works well or not based on what is said on Instagram, because you will often have the first 20 comments be somebody saying the exact same thing because they obviously work for the company, and the company has found out if there are testimonials. That's another thing we're going to talk about. We're going to keep going with all these methods of influence. So don't feel like if we haven't talked about it today, I want you to actually contact me and we can talk about whatever you want to. Where do you think you're vulnerable? Roscoe says, hi. Hi, Roscoe. How are you? I hope you're learning some really good information, because I have spent too many Christmases where I've overspent on gifts based on the fact I was stressed out of my mind, running around like a chicken with her head cut off, trying to do all kinds of work at the same time I'm shopping, them running out of things. And that heightened state caused me to be very vulnerable to any salesperson who said they had a solution for something. Same thing for the new year. How many of you, in addition to Roscoe, has anybody else He said, I just joined you, but I will definitely rewind. No money, no family, no gifts. Ha ha, simplicity. I have talked before, Roscoe, about the fact that I have been completely rejected. I've been rejected primarily for years by part of my family because I'm not woke. And since the election, I've been rejected completely until they wanted something. Then all of a sudden they contacted me. Yeah, that doesn't get. But it's not just Christmas. Let's talk about the fact that we're coming into a new year. It's a really new year. We're going to have a whole new administration that is altering everything from soup to nuts. This is exciting. We've been going through such agony for me more than 20 years. The woke really fully took over our culture at around 2005, and I'm old enough to remember that. So I have been dealing with the fallout from wokeism for a really long time. So to actually have non-woke people in positions of power who are not afraid to say, we're not buying into your crap, it's a whole new day now. Happy dance, happy dance. I do miss my family. I do feel hurt by being rejected by them, but I'm not going to pretend to be woke. I do have woke friends, though. And Roscoe asked me, why would you say it was in 2005, the beginning of the woke? I just noticed it reached the tipping point. Anybody who's read Malcolm Gladwell's book, The Tipping Point, it is so good. We reached a tipping point where it was really hard to find a single show that didn't embed woke values, that didn't have the main characters embed woke values. Now, you had it going on even before that, because I mentioned having to replace one of my dissertation advisors because she didn't like my non-woke topic for my doctorate. I wanted to look at the non-financial costs of being on welfare, and she said I wasn't allowed to look at that. But you still had people saying real things. I used to watch Criminal Minds. Anybody here watch Criminal Minds? Criminal Minds actually was using genuine psychology to talk about the psychosis they were seeing in the characters that the group was coming up against. At around 2005, fewer and fewer truths were being said in media, even on shows like Criminal Minds, where they stopped mentioning things that we've known for a long time. For example, the fact that trans-identified males, cross-dressing males, are significantly more likely to have some sort of serious paraphilia, which is a fetish, including pedophilia, but to have a serious fetish, more likely to have serious mental health issues than a random sample of men. This is why women who don't want trans-identified males in our safe spaces are fighting so hard. It is very dangerous for us. And psychology knew this, but stopped admitting it around 2005, between 2005 and 2010. Since 2018, it's gone full gangbusters. It is almost impossible. When was the last time you saw somebody on TV that actually, where the main character admitted they believe in God, where the main character noted a problem with certain cultural norms and said, well, I'm not sure how that's going to work out, even if they did it in a positive way? It said, well, if we have people who with these different lifestyles, we have to accommodate for that because it could cause some issues. People who grew up very differently, we're going to have to accommodate that because it could cause some issues. Nobody even admits that anything is wrong. You're not allowed to look. You're not allowed to notice. It is complete indoctrination, full on. But I really started to note it around 2005 that it started to ebb into everything. And I work in domestic violence. I work in my anti-bias training. So I'm dealing with a very, very woke segment of the world. Roscoe says, come on, everybody. Is only Roscoe going to talk to me? Leah Thomas, the swimmer trans woman, had one such fetish. It was found. She got off on having bio women see him nude, really. So the university enabled this. The majority of trans-identified males are heterosexual. They have a fetish called autogynephilia, where they get sexually aroused by seeing themselves as women. And that includes Bruce Jenner, who now calls himself Caitlyn. So the world got really, really weird. So I want you to actually not be easily taken advantage of. And while as I said, I've spent a lot of time trying to teach you manipulation tactics, and we're going to continue talking about those, but I thought it was really important for you to also be able to identify the persuasion tactics simply because they increase the probability you'll give in when the manipulation tactics are used. I shouldn't say you'll give in, will give in. I have to be just as careful. There is the parts of the brain, the subconscious, the limbic brain, the primal brain, the reptilian brain. They don't have a filter. They don't change. They don't learn from books. So they change and adapt according to exposure. I have to be very careful what I watch. So when I'm watching TV, if the casting is woke, I don't watch it. If they start doing woke things, I turn it off. If I'm reading a book, I send it back. If I'm listening to a book, I send it back to Amazon. Stay away from wokeism because it influences you. But now I want you to also stay away from these persuasion techniques. Stay away from people who use those priming questions or who show you emotionally evocative images before they try to get you to open your wallet. You know those ads where they show somebody in terrible distress, then they say, only $5 a month and you can save this person. There's no guarantee that money's going to those people. In fact, it probably isn't. But because they get your emotions revved up, or if they do something that makes you really afraid, they'll get you to act. So when we talk next week, I'm going to show you some easy little things, and you can choose almost anything, but we're going to talk about little gestures, little things you can do when you feel like you're being influenced, when somebody uses a technique on you, just to give yourself enough time so that you don't give in. Now, if you need to reach me or hire me, I have programs and education and training. You can reach me at www.drdinamcmillan.com. And Daily Clout, bless Daily Clout for giving me this show. So I'm on live streaming Tuesdays at 8 p.m. on Daily Clout, Rumble, X, Getter, Facebook. Next week it will be recorded, but it'll be a very important show because I'm going to show you what you can do to have an absolutely wonderful new year and increase the probability that you are going to reach your goals. So Roscoe and everyone else, thank you for joining me. And please know I'm going to actually put this episode on my X feed if you need to see it. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you next time.